Circles is your usual suspects. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a beautiful Saturday morning, 46 minutes, actually 47 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. Here down in Kampala, Uganda, where it's a beautiful and sunny morning after what was a very, very cold night, I must mention. But yeah, it's good to be back. And this time around, we'll be discussing or be looking at the Premier League preview for match day 2 of this weekend. We may not look at all games in their entirety, but at least we will be looking at some of the selected games that we think we can digest to give you a couple of insights here and there before the weekend gets underway. Of course, match day 2 in the Premier League has already gotten underway following last night's game between Chelsea and West Ham, in which Chelsea humbled West Ham in that 5-1 thumping. Very horrendous defending, by the way, from that West Ham United, as bad as it gets on any given day or for any given team when it comes to defending. Anyways, to our new community members, welcome to the channel, welcome to the community. I hope you do enjoy your stay with us. I hope you enjoy your time here, and that we will be seeing you here more often than not. For those of you that were part of last night's broadcast, thank you so much. People that managed to chip in, Football Royal, Pedri, and every single one of you, Tester of Life. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having managed to be a part of that broadcast, and you made it worthwhile. And I've always said this. For me, while the numbers matter, even if it's one person that I'm speaking to, I always continue to give my best to deliver the message, because it's a passion that precedes anything in any case on this one. Anyways, quickly, where do we even get started from? Because there's a couple of updates to come our way. First and foremost, in the African Nations Championships, 2 of the 3 co-hosts were knocked out yesterday. Tanzania losing to Morocco by 0-0, while Kenya, following a 1-1 draw against Madagascar, were knocked out 4-3 on penalties. So yeah, Sing and Jay says, hello boss, hello to you too. How are you doing? How is your beautiful morning? Sing. So namaste. Then there's an Nasem Ali. What a fuck? What's that supposed to mean? What's that supposed to mean? I find the choice of language in any case very unbecoming or wanting, but if that's your it is well within your prerogative to decide what kind of tone of language you wish to use. So, for those of you that are just joining us this beautiful morning, my name is Robert K. Sarkos, and I'm coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda, in case you're wondering. It's about 9:50 a.m. So please kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel and help me to 2,000 subscribers. That's the objective at the moment. Like the title has it, it's a football channel, and we are going to be discussing the Premier League preview for this weekend. But first of all, we'll kick things off at the West Ham United Stadium, or at the London Stadium yesterday, where West Ham were humiliated to a 5-1 goal thumping. Lucas Paqueta scoring a brilliant goal in that game to give West Ham United the lead, but Joao Pedro did score a header to cancel out that lead. And then Pedro Neto did score, as well as Enzo Fernandez, to ensure that West Ham were 3-1 behind going into halftime. And in the second half, again capitalizing on set pieces, Tosin Aderabio as well as Trevor Chalobah did both score to make sure that Chelsea closed to a 5-1 victory. Asing says, God bless you, your family. Thank you so much. And Nassim Ali says, Bismillah, Wapalpo. I don't know what that means, but love you, sir. Love you. So handsome. Thank you. Anyways, so in terms of Chelsea, very, very positive result, one they really, really needed following their opening day result against Crystal Palace, in which they shared the spoils in a goalless draw. So they needed a victory to start, putting some morale into that team, and they couldn't have done it any better. But for West Ham, they have a lot of homework to do. We're talking about a Chelsea side that did start without Cole Palmer having suffered what is feared to be an injury during the warm-up to the game, so they had to make some changes in that team. Sir, can I ask a question? Please go ahead and ask your questions. If I have the capacity to answer, or if it is well within my capability to answer, I'll answer. If it's something I cannot respond to, I will be letting you know. But answer any football-related questions, or if you want to, or if you're asking about where I'm from, I can always give that information. Anyway, so Chelsea started without Cole Palmer, so they had to fit in William Estavao and Joao Pedro. Played as the number 10 with Liam Delap leading the lines. Of course, he never managed to get himself on the score sheet, although I think Chelsea fans would have really, really loved to see that he gets on the score sheet, because they want him to equally get off the mark, because Joao Pedro is already off the mark in the Premier League as well. My question is, what is Wapal? I do not know. I honestly do not know. It's you who wrote it, and have no idea what that means. That's why when I read it, I was like, what's that supposed to mean? Anyways, so they started, of course, with Tosin Adarabioyo alongside Trevor Chalobah. You had Marco Cucurella, you had Malo Gusto at right back, you had Robert Sanchez in goal, who by the way at one point pulled off a very immaculate save. Then a midfield pivot of Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo. Ahead of them, Joao Pedro, Liam Delap leading the lines, William Estavao on one side and Pedro Neto on the other. William Estavao, what a player, really. The way he takes that ball, the way he dribbles past players, almost like a hot knife cutting through butter, to create or to provide the assist, to put it on a silver platter for Enzo Fernandez, who simply taps that ball into the back of the net. And it was a very, very brilliant result. You say you know the answer. Please let us know what the answer is. Please let us know what the answer is. So, very beautiful game of football, and therefore Chelsea. And then, meanwhile, allow me to mention this before we move on to our exact review of the Premier League. Is that game between Bayern Munich and RB Leipzig? I mean, what a horrible performance from RB Leipzig, but also what a brilliant performance from Bayern Munich. Must I mention that in that Chelsea game against West Ham, Nicolas Fulcru had thought he had scored before Chelsea found their second to make it 2-1 for West Ham, but that goal was ruled out for offside in the build-up. He's looked sharp throughout pre-season, and the season hasn't started poorly for him, although he's yet to score, but we'll wait. That's it. Now, moving on to RB Leipzig. RB Leipzig also thought they had pulled one back in the game, but that goal was ruled out by VAR. Michael Olise scoring a first half burst there in brilliant style, by the way. Luis Diaz off the mark in the Bundesliga when he scored as well. Then you had a Hurricane hat-trick, which wrapped up the night for a 6-0 thumping. For Bayern Munich against RB Leipzig. So that was a very, very brilliant result there. For those of you that managed to catch that game, but in case you did not manage to catch it, it was the opening game of the new season for the German Bundesliga, and Bayern Munich are off to a very, very flying start, I must acknowledge. Then in the Spanish La Liga, Real Betis did beat up against Deportivo Alaves on match day 2 by a goal to nil, while PSG equally beat up against Angers by a goal to nil there. It was equally match day 2 for the French Ligue 1, and so those were some of the key results that I thought you should take note of. Now, back to the Premier League preview. We're going to kick things off with that game between Manchester City and Tottenham Hotspur. But before we get kicked off with that full preview, allow me to let you know what other fixtures are yet to come for you on match day 2. At 2:30 p.m. East African time, Manchester City are going to be up against Tottenham Hotspur. At 5 p.m., Bournemouth will entertain Wolves at the Vitality Stadium, while Burnley will be up against fellow newcomers Sunderland at 5 p.m. as well. Brentford will be at home against Aston Villa. Brentford are returning or coming into this fixture at the back end of a 3-1 thumping against Nottingham Forest last weekend. So, and then in the late kickoff of Saturday at 7:30 p.m., Arsenal are going to be at home against Leeds United, while on Super Sunday at 4 p.m. we will have two games between Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest, while Everton will be at home against Brighton. Everton playing their first Premier League game at their new stadium. And then at 6:30, that's on Sunday, Fulham will be up against Manchester United, well, on Monday night. And we'll get to discuss this game on Monday. And Newcastle will be up against Liverpool at St. James's Park. So, but like I said, we'll kick things off with Manchester City and Tottenham Hotspur. Both teams come into this fixture on the back of opening victories on match day 1 of the Premier League, with Manchester City beating up against Wolves by 4-0, with a goal scored by Ryan Cherki, but Erling Haaland scored a burst in that one. Who was the other goal scorer? I'm trying to remember because Haaland scored 2. Yes, Tijani Reinders was the other goal scorer for Manchester City on a day that Manchester City really looked immaculate. They looked flawless. They looked like they looked like a well-oiled machine. Everything else was clicking for them. The way and Nico Gonzalez and Tijani Reinders commanded that midfield was brilliant. Rico Rose was equally good at right back. You had Oscar Bob in that team. Of course, you had Ryan Achnori in that team. You had Bernardo Silva. You had Jeremy Doku, who I thought did Jeremy Doku and Bernardo Silva, who I thought did not have the best of days, but because the team won and overall the entire team looked well, yeah, they could pass for slightly above average. But I was more impressed by, Ryan Cherki coming off the bench to score quite a cheeky goal that he did score. So Man City were off to a flying start. Beautiful performance, a show of intent that they are going to be competitors for the Premier League title this season, and we do not expect anything any less from the Pep Guardiola coach side. That's the least we can say of them. And then on the other side, Tottenham Hotspur were equally beating up against a newly promoted side, Burnley, by 3-0. Brennan Johnson, one of the goal scorers, while Richarlison was scoring immaculate goals, picking up a brace in that particular game, while Muhammad Kudus also provided an assist in that game. I think it was a brace of assists for Muhammad Kudus who recently joined Tottenham from West Ham United in a deal worth about £55 million. So they were off, to winning starts, and now they come into match day 2, and we are waiting to see what they can deliver on both ends. 56 appearances or games played between these two sides, with Tottenham winning a large share of that, 29, winning 29, while Manchester City have won only 19. 8 have been draws in those meetings between these two sides. So, but if there's any team that knows one too well how to beat up against the Pep Guardiola side, it's often Tottenham that you can call up on to give Pep Guardiola every sorts of trouble that you can imagine. I think it has mattered less who is in the dugout for Tottenham Hotspur, but they've always managed to give Pep Guardiola lots of troubles. And last season was not any different, although at least either of the teams won at least one of the double-headed fixtures for the Premier League, with Tottenham Hotspur losing at home against Manchester City by 1-0, while the earlier fixture, that was around 23rd November 2024, Manchester City were put to the sword as Tottenham Hotspur put 4 past Manchester City in that particular fixture. So that clearly tells you the kind of tale of game it can be. When you rewind it back to the 2023-2024 campaign, still Manchester City went to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and beat them by 2-0. You remember Manchester City were winning the Premier League title that year. And then, but the earlier fixture again at the Etihad Stadium ended in a 6-goal scoring thriller that was a 3-3 draw between those two sides. And then when you wind it further back, Tottenham Hotspur also did manage to beat Man City at their own turf. That's at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium by 0-0. That was in February 2023. So in as far as the last 5 appearances go, 2 victories for either side and a very, very entertaining draw. That's what we'll come to know of. Now, of course, there's been, when you look at particularly that result of 4-0 last season, goals were James Maddison scored the brace in that game. Brennan Johnson scored, I think, in added time around the 93rd minute or the 3rd minute of added time, and Pedro Porro was the other on target. But it was 2-0 at halftime thanks to James Maddison in that game. So if anything, Tottenham go to the Etihad Stadium knowing that it's a ground they won at before, one that they know how to well to win. Now, of course, there's been changes in the dugout. Last season, it was Ange Postecoglou in the Tottenham Hotspur dugout. This time on, it's Thomas Frank, who is already deploying some of his tactics from Brentford into this Tottenham Hotspur side. They treat every little piece of dead ball situation as a set piece play, and how they ought to organize themselves, how they defend. It looks like they're going to be playing, depending on which opponent they're playing, they will be playing some bit of low blocks and trying to operate on the counter and things like that. So it's one that you clearly would expect. Of course, they do have their injury issues to contend with. James Maddison suffered an anterior cruciate ligament injury. There's a knee injury for Dejan Kulusevski, who arguably for me is one of the very, very best players within that Tottenham Hotspur squad. But at least Dominic Solanke did return, although he didn't start that game against Burnley. It was Richarlison that made the headway, as the forward Brandon Johnson was in that game on one side, and Muhammad Kudus on the other. Pepe Matza is now being played in that sort of number 10 role, where he is playing behind the striker, and so far he's proven that it's a role that he can really execute well, and he was very effective in that win against Burnley. So yeah, they had Richarlison at the tip in sort of a 4-3-3 kind of system. They had Gray and Lucas Bagville in that midfield, Pedro Porro, Dejan Space, Christian Romero and Mickey van de Ven. I remember Christian Romero is now the captain. Guillermo Vicario will be in goal. So I do not expect many changes, if any, from that Tottenham Hotspur starting lineup that will face off with Manchester City. But I think Thomas Frank will know one too well that Manchester City is a different opponent, even though they know how to beat up against them. That is a totally different opponent in comparison to Burnley, who just earned their promotion from the Championship last season. So on the side of Manchester City, when you look at Pep Guardiola's side, like I told you, what the shell of the starting 11 looked like last weekend, he's one manager that is very prone to changing his team on any given day. Hardly does he give you a consistent starting 11. At least, oftentimes he will change one player. That, let's say, for example, if he had the centre back pairing of Ruben Diaz alongside John Stones, I wouldn't be surprised if suddenly Koshanov gets to start this game, and maybe Matthias Nunes starts at right back and things like that. So depending on how you will assess his team, then you look at that midfield. Maybe, just maybe, he decides that maybe Ryan Chucky needs to start this one, or Omar Mamouche needs to start this game. Of course, Savinho missed that game through what was believed to be injury, although it was contrary to that. It was all speculation that he could join Tottenham Hotspur, who are interested in signing him. So I wouldn't be surprised if suddenly Jeremy Doku does not get to start this game, or Oscar Bob doesn't start this game, and Omar Mamouche gets a nod ahead, to play alongside Broad Erling Haaland. So anything can be expected. However, I do not know. My gut feeling has it that this could end in a 2-2 draw between Manchester City and Tottenham Hotspur, and with Tottenham having to give Manchester City a run for their money, especially when it comes to set pieces, because they are being constantly well drilled when it comes to set pieces, on how they defend them, on how they try to score from set piece play. And while Manchester City are known to struggle for defending set pieces, and yesterday we saw how set pieces are important, because 3 of Chelsea's goals came from set piece play, not directly, but at least due to West Ham's failure to defend those second balls that were dropping within the area and things like that. So I believe that set pieces could also be crucial in this particular game. Then also I think it's going to be another beautiful test of Manchester City to further assess their project. Remember, they are in a process of rebuild, but because it is Pep Guardiola, that's why we can never rule them out of a Premier League title race. But my gut feeling says it could end in a 2-2 draw. I could be wrong, I could be right. It's the nature of predictions. So do let me know what your predictions are for this particular game, Manchester City versus Tottenham Hotspurs. What do you think will be the result? Who do you think is going to win it at the end of it? Will it be Man City? If I'm being honest, I do not envision a Manchester City victory, and that's perhaps more the reason as why I envision a draw for this particular fixture. Then moving on, let's tackle the Arsenal versus Leeds fixture before we get to that one of Manchester United against Fulham that will be coming on Super Sunday. Again, for a team like Arsenal and Leeds, they both come into this fixture knowing that on the back of 1-0 victories against Manchester United and Everton. Leeds beat up against Everton by 0-0 through a penalty that was scored by Lucas Meka on Meka. While Arsenal beat Manchester United by 0-0 thanks to a Ricardo Carafiori tap-in at the far end of the back post. Black Z Wolf says hi. Hi, Black Z Wolf. Santiago T says hi. How are you, Santiago? Why are you joining us from this beautiful morning? Do let me know, guys, in the comment section. But please, also do not forget to like the broadcast. And more importantly, consider subscribing to the channel and help me to 2,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. So, Arsenal versus Leeds. In terms of their overall meetings, I struggle to remember the last time Leeds United beat up against Arsenal. Black Wolves says he subscribed. Thank you so much for that show of support. I much appreciated, my brother. So I struggle to remember the last time that Leeds beat up against Arsenal, really, because even in the last 5 meetings that have been between these sides, Leeds have not beaten up against Arsenal one bit. In any case, even scoring has sometimes been a bit tricky for them. For example, in April 2023, the two sides met the Premier League and Arsenal beat Leeds by 4-1, while they had won the earlier reverse fixture by 0-0. Where are you from? I'm from Kampala, Uganda, small country called Uganda in the eastern part of Africa. So you have a region there called East Africa, and you have a region called East Africa that has countries like Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, we neighbor South Sudan, and things like that. So that's where I'm from. But thanks for that question, really. Black Wolves. And guys, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to put them forward. I will be responding to them. So, like I was saying, you then look back at some of the other results. Oh, apologies. I don't know what just happened to my screen. Anyways, that's all besides the point. That's all besides the point. That if anything, you do fancy Arsenal to pick a good result in this one. Black Wolf says, me too. Me too. Wait. Okay. You two are from Uganda or you from East Africa? Because I know for a fact we do have a couple of friends on the channel from Kenya. So then you look at when you go back to the 2021-2022 campaign, Arsenal beating up against Leeds United at home by 2-1 and by 4-1 away from home. That's at Elland Road, and then another 4-2 victory for Arsenal. So it's a fixture that Arsenal do not dominate really, really well in terms of wins. In fact, overall, they've met 30 times in as far as league football is concerned, or Premier League football is concerned, and they've been only 5 draws. They've been 8 victories for Leeds United and 17 for Arsenal. So you can see that Arsenal have more than double the victories against Leeds than Leeds have managed against them. Make me an admin, please. An admin to what? I make you an admin? Why should I make you an admin? And to what exactly? Anyways, what would you want your contribution to be? So I do expect Arsenal, by the way, to win this fixture, to go into match day 2 and win this fixture, because next weekend they have a very, very difficult. You'll ban the bad people. Okay. Thanks for offering. Thanks for offering. Yeah, sometimes people come on and they are a bit unkind with their comments, but it's the nature of life. You do expect some of those things when you're coming on online here. So I do expect Arsenal to register their second victory of the season in whatever fashion, but more importantly, I expect them to have a better display than one they had at Old Trafford last weekend. Bearing in mind that if they do not win this fixture, they have a date against Liverpool in their final game before the September international break. That game is going to be against Liverpool away from home. That's at Anfield, where they've literally not won since maybe what, 2018, really. So they picked up a couple of draws in recent times, and yeah. So in this particular fixture, again, the question is going to be: does Mikel Arteta make changes to his starting lineup? Certainly, I do not think so. I think he would want to test it a little more out to see how better they can play, especially in the transition. In that game against Manchester United, they had 12 moments in transition play and counter-attack phases where they were less effective. The first ball to open those attacks was brilliant, but it was the second balls and third balls that they did struggle up on. Victor Gyökeres struggled on that. Gabriel Martinelli, Martin Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, they struggled to find that second pass that releases the potential goal scorer in many moments of that game. So they will be looking to improve on that. Then also defensively, they were solid. But it's the kind of, but I do not know, for some reason, Arsenal at home, they're very, very prone to conceding more than they are away from home. So, but then, so in terms of their starting 11, I do it, okay, by Wolves, I do expect David Raya goal, Ricardo Carafiori at left back, William Saliba and Magalhaes, as well as Jurgen Timber to start. Midfield, Declan Rice, Martin Zubimendi, Martin Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, Victor Gyökeres, and Martinelli. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how, whichever way you look at it, the fixture comes a little too early for Eberechi Eze, who is joining Arsenal from Crystal Palace in a deal worth a total of £67.5 million. The 27-year-old there. Embo 777 is returning to the broadcast. Good to have you, Embo. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for the love and support, Embo. So you look at it, you look at that and think to yourself, this is a team a little too strong, that could prove a little too strong for Leeds United. But like I said, Eberechi Eze, not Enzo. Eberechi Eze did complete his move to Arsenal. All paperwork have been signed in that deal worth £60.7 million. £67.5 million, £60 million being guaranteed. Some people have raised eyebrows thinking that £60 million is a little too much for a 27-year-old. But I mean, if we are being honest, now, of course, when you look at it in the perspective of that, he's 27 and you have very little to no sell feature or resale value, it's really, really understandable if you look at it in those lenses or with those lenses to say, look, if you put him on a if you put him on a 5-year contract, by the time he concludes that, he's probably going to be 31 or 32 at thereabouts. And usually players within that age, if you're not a sensational talent, the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, the likes of Lionel Messi, you may not fetch anything really, pretty much, or much for your team. For example, we've seen Son Heung-min go from Tottenham Hotspur to Los Angeles Football Club over the Major League Soccer for about 15 million euros or thereabouts, so which is not much money, but I mean, it is still some money. Yobaz says, hi Yobaz, where are you joining us from this beautiful morning? So the fixture comes a little too early for Eberechi Eze, who is joining Arsenal. A lot of people are wondering where is he going to play. He will provide competition for Martin Odegaard, he will provide competition for Gabriel Martinelli down that left wing. He can play as a number 8. So in case Mikel Merino is upset, in case Declan Rice is upset, he can be sent out to play that role. For those of you that have followed Mikel Arteta for quite some time, you know too well that he loves to sign a dynamic player, a player that can play in more than one position. In fact, when you assess that entire Arsenal squad, besides the goalkeeper and now the target man in Victor Gyökeres, most of those players can play more than one position. Lewis Kelly can play at left back, can play in midfield. In fact, naturally, he is a midfielder. Ricardo Carafiori, left back, centre back. Gabriel Magalhaes, William Saliba, they can play at left back and right back respectively, even though they've not played there. You remember Ben White, he's been predominantly played as a right back, but he came in as a centre back. He can also play in midfield. Jurriën Timber can play across the entire back four, and that kind of thing. You look at a player like Gabriel Martinelli, Leandro Trossard, they are all versatile players that he does recruit. Even Martin Zubimendi, Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, these are all versatile players that Mikel Arteta does recruit. So the case is no different from Eberechi Eze. But Arsenal fast-tracked their pursuit for Eberechi Eze after it was broken that their forward in Kai Havertz had suffered a knee injury. The prognosis for that knee injury is yet to be identified and how long he is expected to be out. But initial fears had it that he could be out for quite some time, although recent reports that are yet to be confirmed by the club say that maybe it may not be too long. So we will wait and see how they will fare or how they will set up. But yeah, Eberechi Eze is joining Arsenal. Maybe we get to see him in the stands somewhere. But Arsenal are yet to unveil him. I do not know when they plan on unveiling him. We do know Arsenal are very, very known for dragging their feet. When it comes to unveiling new signings in their team. So we will wait and see. We will wait and see when they intend to make it, and maybe in the course of the week, because I believe all media duties have been done at this point in time. They've been conducted and completed. Once a player finishes their medicals and they pass, usually the next stage is go take the photos. You know that famous photo where Mikel Arteta is standing on one side and the Andrea Bata or the sporting director, maybe family, things like that. You know how the drill often is in terms of unveiling. So, but we are yet to know when he is expected to be unveiled. But once we do know, we'll be sure that we'll let you know. Then on the side of Leeds United, is there concern for Arsenal? I mean, there is always concern for Arsenal. You have players like Prince, Stachi. Some of those are players. Then Daniel James's speed. Some of the things that Arsenal will ponder about going into this game in terms of players that can sort of hurt Arsenal. Now, the advantage for Arsenal is that Daniel Fekir, the manager for Leeds United, also plays the 4-3-3 system predominantly. He loves open football. He loves entertaining football. He loves electric football. So he's not a manager that loves to play a conservative game. Derek Kaira says, "Are you talking about the Arsenal? What was your take on Zubimendi, and do you think he will dominate the Premier League?" Yes, we are talking about the preview of that Arsenal versus Leeds United game, and we had finished the Arsenal side, and now we are trying to look into Leeds United to see do they have the players who are capable of causing harm to this Arsenal side. And indeed, they do have some of those players. Players like Daniel James, very, very electric on a counter. He has that pace. Piroy, yes. Piroy is one of those players. Is one of those players that Arsenal will be concerned of. But like I said, if we were to put the two sides on a weighing scale, then at least Arsenal far preponderates what Leeds are able to offer. And because Leeds play that open sort of football, it's one that may suit Arsenal too well to give a better performance than they managed at Old Trafford against a Manchester United side. Then to answer your question about Martin Zubimendi, do I think he will dominate the Premier League? I think he's going to be, I think he's going to be a dominant force in the Premier League in as far as this season is concerned, in terms of being one of the best midfielders that there is in the Premier League. I think we'll get to see him against more teams that open that do not play with a low block, teams that love to come out and play, he will thrive within those opponents, within those games. But overall, he's a very, very brilliant player. The way he wins the ball back, the way he looks to set play or to dictate the tempo of the game, the way he looks to release that ball fast enough to give people the running chance in the channels. He has that line breaking pass through the middle, through the channels, and the pockets. Again, I often make reference. For those of you that watch the semi-finals, I think of the UEFA Nations League when Spain were beating up against France by 5-4 in that fixture, when Mikel Merino goes on to score. He had those brilliant passes being played in that game, so he has all that capability. And if anything, so far what we've watched of him in an Arsenal jersey, which dates far back to pre-season, I think we've been really, really impressed. So I think he's a very, very good addition to Arsenal. He's a different sort of breed from Thomas Partey. He's not as physical, although he does not get physically taken advantage of, as most people may think. Apologies in case you are experiencing any background noise. I do not know. Somebody is sort of hammering on what may feel like an iron sheet out there. Anyways, so, okay, what do you think about the 2025-2026 Premier League and who can win most probably? That's Embo asking. Now, okay, before I answer that, maybe let me wrap up my Arsenal preview prediction. My prediction is for Arsenal to win that game by 3-1. That's my prediction for Arsenal to win that game by 3-1. And then, Embo, to answer your question, who do I think will win the Premier League title? Now, guys, if you go to the channel, oh, Jesus Christ, very irritating noise coming in from the outside. And unfortunately, I can't get up to guard. I tell whichever that person is to, turn it down with the noise. But all I can say, for those of you that follow the channel, please go to the channel. Under the video section, you will see a video titled my predictions for the 2025-2026 Premier League season. You will get to know who I put in relegation, where do Manchester United finish, where do Chelsea finish, where do Man City finish. You'll get to know who are in the relegation or who will struggle this season. We did assess all the 20 teams in the Premier League this season. However, to answer your question a little more directly, I'll say my prediction is for Arsenal to win the Premier League title this season. That's my prediction. In any case, to give you my top four is that it's Arsenal winning the Premier League title, Liverpool coming second, Chelsea coming third, and Manchester City coming fourth. I could be right, I could be wrong, but let me hope that I'm right with those predictions. But that was my predictions. But for the rest of the Premier League table, please go to the channel. Check under the video section. You will see that video. It should be it should be one of the most recent videos. You'll have to only scroll 3 videos back to find that actually it's pinned on the channel. It's also pinned on the home page of the channel, so you can please go and watch that video as well and give me your comments further on the entirety of my predictions on that. In that very video, by the way, I predicted that West Ham United will finish 15th on the Premier League globe, and some people are thinking, given their horrendous performance against Sunderland and against Chelsea yesterday, they can't even be relegated. But we'll wait and see. Okay, away from the Arsenal fixture, let's quickly run to the Manchester United fixture that does get underway on Super Sunday. Manchester United are equally going to be in action. Okay, maybe before we get to the Manchester United fixture, let's first look at some of the other fixtures, and I just give you my predictions. Bournemouth versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. For this, I just be giving my predictions. I do expect a 2-1 victory for Bournemouth. Brentford, Aston Villa, bit of a difficult game. Aston Villa were involved in a goalless draw against Newcastle on the opening weekend, but if there's any team that they should fancy themselves registering all 3 points away from home, it should be Brentford. They did not look good against Nottingham Forest, so I'm thinking Aston Villa go to the GTEC Stadium and win this one 2-1. Burnley against Sunderland. These two sides know one too well each other, having played in the Championship last season. However, Sunderland is a much different, is sort of a change side, given all the signings they've been able to bring in this transfer window, the likes of Granit Xhaka, the likes of Simon Adingra. Those are some of the signings that they've made, and very, very good additions. Habib Diarra from Strasbourg, Enzo Lifi, Noah Sadiki, Mandava, Maguire from Chelsea, joining in there on a season-long loan. So, I mean, they do look a very, very decent side. And by the way, they are far from done in as far as the transfer window is concerned in terms of incomings. So they look a much changed side. While Burnley themselves have brought in some recruits, including Kyle Walker from Manchester City. They brought in, I think Arsenal will be very good this season. That's Embo. I do agree with you on that front. Yeah, I do think so. Burnley have brought in Kyle Walker. They brought in Axel Tuanzebe. They brought in Bashir Humphrey. They brought in Amanda Bruger from Chelsea. They brought in Leslie Wogocheku from Chelsea as well. Martin Dubravka, that's a goalkeeper from Newcastle. So my expectation and prediction for this particular game is for Sunderland to edge it. Sunderland maybe to win it by 2-0. That's my prediction. Guys, they're mere predictions. Anyways, then quickly, we go to Super Sunday. Super Sunday. Crystal Palace up against Nottingham Forest. Everton up against Brighton and Hove Albion. Very, very entertaining fixtures. But Fulham versus Manchester United. Now, last weekend, we had the perfect score prediction of a 1-1 draw between Brighton and Hove Albion, as well as, versus Fulham. We couldn't have been more right. We got that one absolutely spot on. Manchester United had a very, very beautiful performance against Arsenal, albeit they lost. In any case, if they continue with such kind of performances, I think they will be able to post so many points on board. They'll be poised to win very, very many games. But as you know, the Premier League, every team poses a different threat as compared to what you may think of it. Jokers will dominate the Premier League. Hopefully, hope that will be the case. But I mean, in a league that has brought Erling Haaland, in a league that has Alexander Isak, in case he does return to action, in a league that has Mohamed Salah, really, it's not easy for any player to just walk in and be more dominant than those couple of players. In any case, Chris Wood, I think he picked up a brace last weekend as Nottingham Forest beat up against Brentford by 3-1. So let's not forget that there are other potent players. Yeah, Chris Wood picked up a brace in that game, as well as Danny Ndoye in that particular fixture. But the hope actually for Victor Gyökeres going into match day 2 for Arsenal versus Leeds is that he gets off the mark. That's going to be your objective. Find always to score, whether it's from the penalty spot, whether it's from a free kick, whether it's a tap-in, whether you call that ball into the back of the net. He just needs to find his scoring boots because in any case, he's already under enormous pressure given the kind of stage where Arsenal are within their project, but also because of the media pressure. You've been brought in as a striker. Everybody thought that Arsenal needed a striker to get them over the line. And if you've come in and you're not scoring the goals, then that media pressure is going to be very, very much on his shoulders. So he needs to score as soon as yesterday and get off the mark. But for me personally, I'm not really yet that concerned. I want to give him the benefit of that. I want to give him at least 2 to 3 months to fit well within the Premier League, to acclimatize to the way Arsenal play, to adapt to Arsenal's ways, and as Arsenal also get to adapt to him and see how better they can tweak their game to suit the kind of target man they have, and how better can the target man adjust his game to fit the overall play of Arsenal in terms of how they do operate. So that's my views on Victor Gyökeres. But yeah, if he can get a goal against Leeds United, that will be really, really nice to watch. So back to the Fulham Man United game. Fulham Manchester United, like I was saying, Man United had a very, very brilliant game last weekend, although they lost to Arsenal. Brandon Bomo, Matas Cunha, Matas Delic. They had wonderful game. Patrick Togu, one of the best players in that Manchester United side, by the way. Mason Mount looks like he's going to be a Ruben Amorim kind of favorite player. If he can stay fit, if he can stay fully fit, then really is going to be one of those reliable figures. And then when you look at a player like what's his name? Luke Shaw. Now, Luke Shaw is the kind of player that I've always appreciated, always admired. But he spends more time away from the turf than he does spend on the turf. When he's fully fit, he's actually one of the best left backs that we've seen in the Premier League in the last 8 years or so. However, because of injuries, he's almost never available. And it's been one of the constant criticism from Manchester United fans about Luke Shaw. Nobody questions who is your favorite player. My favorite player in regards to what? Kindly be a little bit more specific. Currently, who is my favorite player? Who is my favorite player of all time? Who is my favorite player in a particular team? Because at least I could say, I could pick out a player in literally every team to say that's a good player or that's a player I enjoy to watch. Kindly clarify before I answer. So Manchester United, again, Matas Delic, Lenio, they all look brilliant. There are questions that who will Manchester United starting goal. Of course, Andre Onana is fit as he was last weekend, although they chose to start with Altay Baindia. We know that Manchester United are interested in signing the goalkeeper. Royal Tampan is asking Manchester City, Tottenham, your prediction. Oh, I said my prediction is a 2-2 draw between those two sides, but in any case, Tottenham, I think, have the bigger chance to win that game if one is to win it. But my prediction is a 2-2 draw for now between those two sides. So, I look at that Man United side and think to myself, we know they are in the market, are searching for a goalkeeper. They want to improve their goalkeeping ranks, and they are targeting the Royal Antwerp goalkeeper. That is Lehmann. Oh, I don't know why I struggle to pronounce the name. I don't know why I struggle to pronounce the name. But let me just read the name. The name is Sene Lamens, actually. Sene Lamens. I struggle to pronounce his name. I'll have to get used to it. But yeah, they are already in advanced talks with Royal Antwerp to sign the goalkeeper for about £17 million. Talks on player side and the club-to-club side are well advanced. Full agreements are yet to be reached, but we can't rule out anything. But United are really working on it. They want to get a deal done for the Royal Antwerp goalkeeper. Is the kind of goalkeeper they've been tracking for almost all summer. Although they made an attempt to sign Emi Martinez from Aston Villa on a season-long loan with an option to buy. They were being linked with Andre Lunin from Real Madrid. They were linked with the potential move for Casenecchi, the 24-year-old Italian goalkeeper at Atlanta. Reports have pointed them in the direction of Gianluigi Donnarumma from PSG. Gigi Donnarumma yesterday bid farewell to the PSG fans at Parc des Princes there, because he's expected to leave the club because they've since signed Lucas Chavelia. They are from Lille to be the #1 goalkeeper for PSG, which, by the way, for me, made sort of good questions on their overall performance. You say, which national team can easily play a final in the World Cup? Oh, that's not an easy question. But off of my head, I'd say Spain, I'd say Argentina, I'd say France, some of those teams, really, very good teams. Portugal is one of those, they have a very good squad of players. So, but back to the gist, guys. Back to the gist. Fulham have not had much business in the transfer window. They've not improved so much from their squad, but at least they've managed to keep a hold of some of their key players, including Rodrigo Muniz, and I think he was the goal scorer last weekend for the equalizer. I'll go. I have a job. Sorry, It's all right, mate. Embo, I thank you so much for dedicating all the time you've been with us during this broadcast, and we hope to see you again very soon. So, Fulham have not done much business. Manchester United have really done well to improve in this transfer window. They bought in Benjamin Sesko, Matas Cunha, Brian Mbomo. They are looking to bring in Sene Lamens as the goalkeeper from Royal Antwerp. They could bring in a holding midfielder or a central midfielder before the end of the transfer window. We know for a fact that they were interested in signing Carlos Baleba from Brighton and Hove Albion. However, Brighton have told them he is not for sale in this transfer window. Maybe they can explore that option next summer. They could move on to other targets. However, not many names have fared prominently in regards to Manchester United's search for a central midfielder. And then Manchester United are working on outgoings. Albeit it's not been really successful so far. Jordan Sancho, Tyler Malacia, Alejandro Garnacho, who turned down interest from Bayern Munich because he wants to stay in the Premier League and he wants to join Chelsea. You have Anthony, he's still also there, hanging on the flanks. They want to move on those players. Now, part of Manchester United's investments in this transfer window are banked on the idea or on the prospect that some of those players are going to move on and they will generate some revenue for the club. However, they are yet to reach agreements for any of those players. They had an agreement in principle with AC Roma for Jordan Sancho. Jordan Sancho turned down AC Roma. So, yeah, that's what is happening. Will Manchester United continue with the new stadium or stay at Old Trafford? Now, the new stadium, it's a proposal. It's one they want to work on, but it's a mega proposal. I think they will continue with it. But when that gets started remains to be seen. But yeah, they will proceed with it because of the size of the club that Manchester United are, they want to be in the same ranks with Barcelona, with Real Madrid, and we've seen Barcelona rebuilt Camp Nou. They've raised it from 99,000 seater to 105,000 seater stadium now. We saw what Bayern Munich did. Sorry, we saw what Real Madrid did with the Santiago Bernabeu. Rebuilding it. It's an 82,000 seater capacity. So United want to be the biggest team in the Premier League. And yes, they have the biggest stadium with the 70,000 seater capacity, but they want to improve on that. So I think they will continue with that project, provided everything aligns for them. They are looking for partners to fund the construction of the £2 billion stadium. So yeah, I think they will continue with that. So in terms of the two teams are facing off with one another, again, Man United lost. Fulham was in a 1-1 draw. So there isn't much to take away from match day one for other sides. But like I said, Manchester United had a very beautiful game. If they can replicate that against Fulham, I think that performance was worthy of a victory. They just need to be clinical at goal. You remember in that game against Arsenal, Patrick Dogu hit the base of the upright. A couple of missed chances here and there. When it comes to head-to-head, Manchester United, they do dominate this fixture. In any case, they've beaten up against Fulham at least 4 times out of the last 5 fixtures in as far as the Premier League is concerned. Inak says, out of topic, your choice calls Lampard or out of topic. Oh, you're saying out of topic. For as long as it's a football-related question, do not mind. It is still all football. You say, my choice calls Lampard Gerrard. Wow. Let me put it this way before I make my conclusion, because usually I do not want to make these questions that bring prayer comparison as simplistic as just choosing one or the other. If I wanted a long pass, I'd go for post scores. If I wanted goals and assists, I'd go for Frank Lampard. If I wanted for a player that strikes the perfect balance between defensive and offensive duties as a natural number 8, I'd go with Steven Gerrard. Now, out of all of them, I think I'm going to go with Paul Scholes as the better player overall. But I mean, no offense to all the others. That would be my choice. But like I said, if I want a high goal scoring midfielder, goals, assists, I'm going to go for Frank Lampard. If I want a player that commits defensively as well as offensively, I'd go for Steven Gerrard. In that context. So Manchester United versus Fulham. Man United beat up against Fulham home and away last season by a 1-goal margin in all fixtures, a 0-0. Then you have to go back to last season, but one when Fulham came to Old Trafford and beat them by 2-1, while Man United had won the earlier fixture by 0-0 still. And then when you go back to November 2023, United beating up against Fulham by 2-1. Again, overall 26 games played between them. Manchester United, 36 games played between them. Manchester United 26 wins, only 4 for Fulham and 6 draws. So it's a game that seldom do Fulham win. It's a game that they rarely register a draw. In fact, out of their last 5 fixtures, there's not been a single draw. And personally, given how strong Manchester United appeared last weekend, I'm going to bank on them and go for a 2-1 victory for Manchester United against Fulham. That's what I'm going for against Marco Silva's side. I'm rooting for Manchester United to win. That's my prediction on that front. Did I give my predictions for the other games on Super Sunday? Maybe, perhaps not yet. But yeah, Nottingham Forest up against Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. Maybe a draw, a 1-1 draw. Everton against Brighton and Hove Albion at home. Everton didn't look so good. They didn't look too bad against Leeds. Leeds dominated that game. A home game for Everton, can be defensively solid. I think another draw, maybe a 1-1 all draw between these two sides as well. Geez, have so many draws this weekend. Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest, Everton, Brighton, no. By the way, and then Man City, Tottenham Hotspur, 3 draws this weekend that I'm predicting. Wow, that's anyways. For the game between Newcastle and Liverpool, we'll get to discuss that on Monday. Do not worry, we'll get to preview that on Monday. Do not worry. And then quickly, let's now talk about transfers, because the transfer window is expected to close on September 1st. So it is still open. Player movement is still expected. Where should we begin? Let's begin things off. Okay, let's begin with Arsenal. They've had their incomings. They've had their incomings. Now they ought to work on outgoings. And among those that have come in, for those of you that we've talked about Ebeleche Eze, we've talked about Victor Gyökeres, Christian Mosquera, Noni Madueke, Christian Nogard, Martin Zubimendi, Kepa Arrizabalaga, Ebeleche Eze is coming in. Outgoings, Jorginho, Tiani, Nuno Tavares, Marquinhos, Takahiro Tomiyasu, Thomas Partey, all released. The expectation is now that Arsenal will work on outgoings. Rhys Nelson, Albert Sambilokonga, Fabio Vieira, who is a target for Stuttgart. The goalkeeper Karl Hein has left to join Werder Bremen on a season-long loan. I do not know if it has an obligation to buy, but he's left the club. So that's still in the works, So Alexander Zinchenko is another player they want to move on. FC Porto want to sign Jakub Kivio. Crystal Palace have some interest in Jakub Kivio, but it's FC Porto that are leading that race. Rhys Nelson, Fulham are interested. He wants to stay within England, within London. So let's wait and see. But excuse me, he's one of those players expected to leave before the close of the transfer window. We have spoken about Manchester United transfers, their pursuit for goalkeeper. Now Napoli are advancing in talks with Rasmus Højlund over a potential move. Manchester United are aware of those talks and they are open to a loan, an initial loan with an obligation to buy. So That deal is expected to advance in the coming days. I remember AC Milan were the ones leading the rest to sign Rasmus Højlund. Hi, Boss Royal. How are you doing, my brother? How are you? How is your beautiful morning? It's 10:46 a.m. here in Kampala, Uganda, and I'm thinking in the UK it should be around 8:46, 8:45 thereabout. Messi hater, yo, Messi hater is back with us. He was with us last night for last night's broadcast. Messi hater, where do you come from? Yeah, you say 8:46. Yes, okay. I'm all good, Boss Royal. Okay, that's good to hear. Hello, Messi hater. Why do you hate Messi? That's the first question. Where are you joining us from? What team do you support? Usually, Messi haters, I do not know. Allow me speculate this, but they're usually Real Madrid fans. So then, so Manchester United are equally working on incoming for a goalkeeper. Like I've told you, they want to sign Sene Lamens from Royal Antwerp. They want to move on those, Garnacho, Sancho, to move on, Anthony, Tyler Malacia. They want to move on those players all. And Real Betis are still working on a deal to sign Anthony for Manchester United. Talks are ongoing to agree terms and try to get a green light on deal structure. Now, Real Betis have proposed. Messi says, "Sub, please, yes, please subscribe to the channel, guys. Remember, the goal is to get to 2,000 subscribers. So any subscription that you do render me is really, really much appreciated." I can see Messi says Ronaldo Sui. Boss Royal says Messi hater probably. Let me see. You say Boss Royal, you said Chelsea beat West Ham yesterday. Yeah, in brilliant fashion. They literally blew them away. 3 goals coming from set piece plays. That was really, really brilliant. West Ham were very, very horrible at their defending. They defended poorly in that game. They have a lot to do. In fact, I do fear for Graham Potter because 5 wins in about 20-21 games is not really, really a decent record. He needs to fix himself before he gets shown the exit. Again, there have been reports linking Nuno Espirito Santo with a potential move to West Ham United in the wake of his disagreements or bad relationship with him and Nottingham Forest's head of global football, that is Edu Gaspar Dawood, the former sporting director at Arsenal, who is a close friend to Evangelos Marinakis. He was saying yesterday, Nuno Espirito Santo, that his relationship with the owner, that is Evangelos Marinakis, who also owns Olympiacos, and I think Braga in Portugal, did say that his relationship is growing apart or distant, something like that. Messi hater is probably a 10 sub. Ronaldo Sui 3-4-3, very difficult for left midfield. Kuyang says formation 3-4-3 are very difficult for left midfield forward and right midfield forward. Why do you say it's very difficult for them? What's your rationale for that? So, United are trying to move on those players. Real Betis did propose a co-ownership of Anthony. That's a possibility where, let's say, if a club buys a player for a fee that is below average, oftentimes they will agree to a significant feature sell-on clause, or they can co-own the player to say you own 60% of the player, I own 40%, something like that. But Anthony would love to return to Real Betis. He did have a very, very beautiful couple of months there, about 4 to 5 months during his loan spell from January this year for last season. So they want to take him back. Sancho, we do not know after turning down a move to Roma, we do not know where the wind is going to blow for him. Chelsea continue negotiations with Manchester United to find a deal for Garnacho, although there is still a huge disparity between Chelsea's valuation of the player and that of Manchester United, with Chelsea believed to be offering just a mere 30 million pounds, while Man United want at least 50 million pounds, are drawing benchmarks or on some of the players or wingers that have moved in this transfer window. Chelsea signing Jamie Gittins, them getting Joao Pedro, of course, Noni Madueke going to Arsenal. They're using all that as benchmarks. In any case, yesterday, Everton did reach an agreement to sign Tyler Dibling, the 19-year-old winger from Southampton, for a total package of 42 million pounds, with 36 million pounds being the guaranteed fees, plus a future easily achievable add-on 6 million pounds in add-on. So, I mean, if Tyler Dibling is going to go for that, then clearly Jadon Sancho is worth slightly more than that. So let's wait and see how everything will go in that respect. Then Pep Guardiola on Edson Moraes, he said we will see tomorrow, because until after Brighton game, the transfer window is over. After we can say okay, it's done. No, now everything is what's going to happen. You remember Galatasaray had an initial bid of about 10 million euros turned down for Ederson Moraes. That's the goalkeeper. The player is open to making a switch to Turkey, or Takie, as people prefer to pronounce it, with Manchester City lining up a deal for Gianluigi Donnarumma should Ederson Moraes leave. You remember in the opening game over the weekend, it's James Trafford, who they recently resigned from Burnley, that started in goal for Manchester City. So yeah, those are some of the key transfer news that are making the rounds. Then quickly, allow me bring you up to speed in regards to the latest from the transfer speculation and gossip as far as things are concerned, as compiled by BBC Sport, before we look to wrap this broadcast up. Manchester City have not ruled out a move for Brazilian winger Rodrigo Goes. That's according to ESPN, who is valued at about 80 million euros. And then, however, Arsenal are also eyeing a move for Rodrigo, with Liverpool also interested, as they seek to replace Colombian winger Luis Diaz, who has moved to Bayern Munich earlier this summer. By the way, Luis Diaz got off the mark as they beat up against RB Leipzig by 6 goals to nil yesterday. Michael Olise is one of the most underrated players that there is in European football today. How is he under the radar? I mean, I was desperate for Premier League teams to sign him before he left Crystal Palace to join Bayern Munich. And what a signing this proved to be. Then Ange Postecoglou and Jose Mourinho are contenders for the Nottingham Forest job if Nuno Espirito Santo is sacked. Then Real Madrid are monitoring Crystal Palace's midfielder, Adam Wharton. That's according to ACE in Spanish. Hey Dada, hi Pedri, how are you? Sarah says, hello, how are you? Which country are you from? I'm from Kampala, Uganda. Uganda, the small country in the eastern part of of Africa. That's where I'm from. Thanks, Sarah, for asking. Where are you from, Sarah? Why will Santo be backed? Oh, sorry. Why will Santo be sacked? I mean, there's no reason for him to be sacked in all footballing sense. However, when you have two high-ranking officials within the club, that's the head of global football, Edu Gaspar Dawood, and the manager, not seeing eye to eye, and yet both positions are integral, with Edu leading the squad development. I mean, these things are bound to happen. It may come to a situation where the manager says it's either him or me. One of us leaves. I either step down or you let him go, and something like that. And it's not yet come to that. But yesterday we were speaking about that situation, and my view was that if you had to make a decision for me, practically a football decision, if Evangelos Marinax, as good as a friend Edu is to me, I may end up getting rid of him, because at the end of the day, it's the football on the turf that matters, that counts, you know. So, but according to the Athletic, they did say that Nuno Espirito Santo has had a spectacular fallout with Edu behind the scenes at Nottingham Forest. Nuno's relationship with Edu, who was appointed Forest's global head of football in July, started badly and has since deteriorated to a point where there is an acceptance at the city ground that the damage is probably is potentially irreparable. Excuse me. So you have that breakdown in relationship, and reports have gone on to say that particularly that situation or that relationship was not helped when Edu Gaspar Dawood refused to sign Amanda Traore from Fulham as a replacement for Anthony Elanga, because for him he thought otherwise. Then the other thing is that in his view, they need to build a broader squad to help balance their competitiveness in the Premier League as well as in the Europa League, where they're going to be playing this season, while Nuno Espirito Santo does not see in the same strength. So, but they say, the Athletic continues to further say, it is personal, deeply personal, between himself and Edu. Perhaps the most worrying aspect for Forest fans is that as things stand, it is difficult to see the two men making up. Of the two, Nuno has largely been the aggressor, outspoken in the extreme. Edu has been staying away from the club's training ground, explains the Athletic. Pedri says, oh, I think Nuno made a crazy impact in Forest and he's a great manager. Yes, I mean, by the time he walked in at Nottingham Forest, when they had sacked Steve Cooper, they were under the threat of relegation, and he saved them from relegation. And look where they finished last season, 7th on the Premier League table. In any case, if they hadn't collapsed at the tail end of the season in the last, I think, 8 games, they could have earned themselves UEFA Champions League football, but they ended up qualifying for UEFA Conference League football. However, that has been upgraded to UEFA Europa League football because Crystal Palace were found in breach of the multi-club ownership rules there because of their then shareholder John Textor, who also owns shares in Lyon and things like that. So yeah, that's the situation, unfortunately, at Nottingham Forest. But if Evangelos Marinax has to make a decision, if this relationship continues to be bitter, you may find that he has to keep only one. But we'll wait and see. Anyways, like I said, Real Madrid are monitoring Adam Wharton. Adam Wharton is another player that has been linked to the potential move to Manchester United. Very, very good youngster, only 21 years of age. Even Barcelona were linked with the potential move for him, but we'll wait and see. Aston Villa looks set to miss out on Senegalese forward Nicolas Jackson with Chelsea's £70 million valuation, an obstacle. That's according to the Sun. Welcome. Cameroon international Andre Onana is expected to start Manchester United despite uncertainty over his future and speculation. The club may move for Royal Antwerp's goalkeeper, Belgian goalkeeper Sene Lamens. We've discussed Sene Lamens and negotiations are going. Antwerp want about £17 million. We've discussed that. Tottenham are ready to make an improved bid of more than £60 million for Manchester City Brazilian winger Savinho. That's according to Fabrizio Romano. West Ham have submitted a bid for Monaco's Magassa 21 and are pushing to complete a deal for the French under 21 midfielder. West Ham need a holding midfielder, a very, very good holding midfielder. But Monaco have rejected an initial bid worth £14 million plus £2.6 million in add-ons, though they expect that the Hammers to return with a fresh offer. That's according to Foot Mercato. Everton have contacted Villarreal over a possible deal for 21-year-old Cameroon forward Eta Eyong. Looks like Everton also want to raid Villarreal once again after signing Thion Barry from the same side. So anyways, we'll wait and see. Otherwise, it's been a brilliant broadcast this beautiful Saturday morning. It's 11 a.m. That's exactly 1 hour and a quarter of us being on this broadcast. Thank you so much, Pedri. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you so much, Kuyang FC. Thank you so much, Messi Heta. Thank you so much, Boss Royal. Thank you so much, Royo Tampan. Thank you so much, Embo. Thank you so much, Derek Kaira, thank you so much. Blacks Wolves, thank you so much. Nasim Ali, and every single one of you, Singh and Jay, thank you so much. And every single one of you that managed to tune into today's broadcast. It's been quite worthwhile. Thank you so much for making it beautiful. Of course, there's a lot of action coming your way in across Europe, in terms of your favorite leagues, but that's everything to do with the Premier League. In the Spanish La Liga, Mallorca going to be up against Celta Vigo. Atletico de Madrid, who kick-started their season with a loss, are going to be up against Elche. So be sure to catch that game. They lost by 2-1. Was it against Getafe? Then also Levante will be up against Barcelona. That game will come at 10:30 p.m. I should be looking forward to watch that one because it will come in the aftermath of the Arsenal game. Then in the German Bundesliga, Bayer Leverkusen are going to be up against Hoffenheim. Eintracht Frankfurt will be up against Werder Bremen. That's where goalkeeper Karl Hein has gone from Arsenal. Heidenheim are going to be up against VfB Wolfsburg. Freiburg will be up against Augsburg. All those games kicking off at 4:30 p.m. East African time, while Union Berlin will be up against VfB Stuttgart. Then St. Pauli will be up against Borussia Dortmund at 9:30 p.m. The Italian Serie A equally gets underway with Genoa up against Lecce at 7:30 p.m. while reigning champions Napoli will be up against Sassuolo at 7:30 p.m. AC Milan at 9:45 will be against Cremonese, while AC Roma at the same time will be up against Bologna. Remember, AC Milan are now under the charges of Stefano Pioli. Sorry, not Stefano Pioli. Stefano Pioli is at Fiorentina, and AC Roma are under the charges of Gianpiero Gasperini, who left Atlanta recently. And then in League One, where PSG yesterday won their game against Angers by 0-0. In League One, Marseille will be up against Paris FC, Nice will be up against Auxerre, while Lyon will be up against Metis. In the Dutch Eredivisie, Go Ahead Eagles are going to be up against Sparta Rotterdam. PSV Eindhoven will be up against Groningen. Leicester will be up against Voldem. Some of these names are difficult for me to pronounce. But anyways, do go enjoy all those fixtures in this beautiful weekend. And I'll see you guys next time. Stay blessed for now. Bye-bye.